Yes, my friends, it is the 13th day of March, 2011 on this live Sunday transmission. I'm live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, back 4 to 6 Central Standard Time. Obviously, the lion's share of this Sunday 2-hour transmission will be devoted to the absolute crisis that Japan is facing. And the Japanese government has stated today this is the greatest crisis Japan has faced since World War II, when every major city in Japan was bombed in the ground and 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Millions of Japanese died total in that war, including those on the mainland. So they are saying this is the biggest crisis they faced in more than 65 years, and there is no doubt. Here's what we know. Top geological surveys in the United States and Japan are predicting more aftershocks. They've had more than 100 earthquakes, many of which are over a 6.0 on the Richter scale, since the massive earthquake that took place Friday in Japan. Then the resulting tsunamis. In one town alone, the military in Japan is estimating more than 10,000 people dead. Just like with the 2005 Indonesian earthquake that was over a 9 on the Richter scale. They're now saying that this earthquake was a 9.1, upgraded from an 8.9. That's double previously what they thought it was. But again, General News is reporting over 10K dead nationwide and growing. Military, they're predicting 10,000 dead in one single town. And what does this illustrate? Life is fragile. The only thing that's constant on this planet is change. How many Greek cities and Roman cities and Japanese cities have been destroyed by earthquakes and by volcanic eruptions? By the way, there's been another big volcanic eruption clearly connected to the gigantic earthquake. Japanese volcano erupts in the southwestern area of Japan, exploding and ejecting rock and ash high into the atmosphere. Japan tsunami survivor found 10 miles out to sea on top of the wreckage of the roof of a house. Of course, the images of fires at oil refineries still burning. The devastation is biblical, obviously, in proportion. And we live on a planet hurtling through space 2/3 of the way out on the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, orbiting a sun. And I had Piers Corbin, top meteorologist and astrophysicist, on Friday. And even ABC News asked the question 2 weeks ago, would the giant moon, as it's known, cause this? The closest the moon had been to the Earth since 1992, and it happened to coincide with a record solar flare that basically hit the general area of Antarctica, also energizing the magnetic field and the inner workings of the planet. And there's major studies. They don't exactly understand why it happens, but scientists do know that the moon and the sun manipulate not just the tides of the planet's oceans, but that the moon predominantly, even more than the sun, drives the magma. See, the crust is just floating on top of the magma. There are islands of cooled rock that we live on, only a few miles thick, with thousands of miles deep lava down to that nickel iron spinning core of the planet that creates the magnetic field. But the sun's magnetics, the sun thousands of times the size of the Earth, its powerful magnetics then affect that lava and that liquid nickel and iron as well. So you had massive record coronal ejection fully hitting the Earth straight on the day before the mega earthquake. And more scientists are realizing that it is a direct cause and effect with the sun and the moon. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if the moon creates the tides, the moon creates the waves. If you didn't have the moon, there would be very little waves, no tides. That is the moon spinning around the Earth. That's 100% scientific fact. Now, Al Gore and others predictably came out and said global warming caused this. Did the Romans 2,000 plus years ago, when a bunch of their cities got destroyed by Vesuvius erupting and people got killed in their tracks by the thousands and were encased in lava at Pompeii and other cities, was that caused by global warming, caused by man? The ice caps of Europa, the ice caps of Titan, the ice caps of Mars have been melting because of the sun's increased output and activity. Is that caused by the SUV? No. It's time to realize that man is tiny and that the real threats that man poses are nuclear weapons, fission fusion reactors, superconducting super colliders, super weapons. And I'm not anti-technology. I'm not here calling for the overt restriction. I'm just calling for a debate and a discussion about these super technologies. Now, that said, I want to walk through all the different facets and angles of what's happened in Japan. And the fact that volcanic activity is radically increasing, including in the last 100 years that they've been scientifically measuring it, Yellowstone, which is the largest active volcanic caldera on the planet. It is a super volcano. The cone is several hundred miles across. The cone straddles several state borders. And the last time it erupted, it is predicted that it killed almost all life in North America. Now, man only has records going back vaguely about 3,000 years. A little bit of records going back 6,000 to the Sanskrit and some of the hieroglyphs and things from Egypt and Babylon. So when scientists believe that we only get hit by giant asteroids every million years, or when scientists believe that mega volcanoes only go off every a few million years, that was all changed with Shoemaker-Levy. That was the comet that hit Saturn, what was it, 15, 20 years ago? You can pull it up, broke into 5 big pieces, blew holes in the Saturn gas giant, bigger than the planet Earth. Now scientists, unfortunately, have had to change their view, and they say conservatively every 100,000 years or less, we get hit by gigantic asteroids. A smaller one has the effect of 30 or 40 high-powered nukes going off. The bigger ones, thousands of nukes. We're talking about years of darkness, dust, the Earth's temperature going into an ice age. We're talking about absolute, complete collapse of society and everybody you know dying. Now, the globalists know this is real, and that's why they've taken several trillion U.S. dollars, we know that's been spent, and built giant underground bases all over North America. The Swiss have built them for their entire population, 2-year supply. In the U.S., the general public is directed to the local sports stadium or underground parking garage as fallout or emergency centers to crawl in and die, starve to death with your family. Though our government has spent more than all governments combined on underground bases, we have no underground bases for the citizens. They're all for David Rockefeller and the rest of them. So I thought I would just add that in there for you. That shows you what our government thinks of us here in Land of the Free, Home of the Brave. They have giant seed vaults. They have giant admitted underground bases near the Arctic and Antarctic Circle. The UN has more than 24 bases worldwide that are public, heavily guarded. Here in the U.S., there's Mount Weather, Mount Shasta. There's a giant underground base hub under Berkshire International. I only know because I have connections who lived here in Austin in the 50s when it was being constructed. This is top secret information. It connects to Fort Hood, a giant nuke base out there. All right, I'll tell you about how we were first to report the meltdown at the major reactor in Japan on the other side.
Look at your young
It is Sunday, the 13th day of March 2011. And of course, on the 11th, on Friday, Japan had the greatest earthquake in modern history for their country, even their region, now upgraded to a 9.1. Hundreds of aftershocks, with most scientists, seismologists expecting that there will be another big aftershock sometime in the next 24 hours. To put a 9.1 in perspective, that is double an 8.9 on the Richter scale, more than double. To give you an idea of the type of earthquake that hit Japan, of course, a large volcano has now erupted, blasting ash over several cities in Japan's southwestern area. I've got more than 150 news articles here for prisonplanet.tv viewers, not radio listeners. For radio listeners, you can go to Infowars.com and see all of these articles posted in real time in a special section that we have that's being updated minute by minute with our team, having somebody on staff 24 hours a day to track this. Now, I'm 22 minutes into the broadcast, and I haven't gotten to the biggest issue yet, and I'm going to be detailing this later in the hour, but I wanted to calmly give you some of the background and a wide spectrum analysis of what's happening before I go there. The Japanese government is now reporting that 6 plants have lost power and that they are in emergency situations trying to pump seawater on the ocean-based plants, coastal plants, and regular water into one of the plants that is more inland, and that 3 plants are on the verge of complete meltdown. The Fukushima #1 did melt down, ladies and gentlemen, and it began melting down Friday night Japan time. That's in the morning here. I knew that because I had done basic research into it, and they were reporting 1,000 times regular levels of cesium and radioactive iodine, and that is only released from these type of uranium rod reactors when a meltdown has begun and fission has been achieved. Now, I'm no nuclear physicist. That is 101 in the encyclopedia for a meltdown. That's what happened at Chernobyl. Now, I had arguments with my writers, proved the information to my writers. Kurt Nimmo, Saturday, not mean arguments, but we had debates about it. And I worked with Kurt, and he concurred, and we put out a report first, Saturday morning, before anybody else did. And I just want to point out, we know what we're talking about here, that Fukushima #1 had melted down. Now, it had not exploded yet. Right at the time our article went out, it exploded. That was not a steam release or a hydrogen explosion. And that's now been admitted by the Japanese government that it did indeed melt down and did indeed explode. They first tried to claim, oh, well, that was just the containment facility blew up, but the reactor's fine inside. Sure. It's an explosion sending sending brown smoke, meaning that's not steam, ladies and gentlemen, over 1,000 feet in the air in seconds. Those towers are 1,000+ feet tall. We looked it up. So within seconds, a 1,000-foot tall explosion, a giant containment facility going sky high at the reactor #1. And then the media said, gee, do you think there's going to be a bigger problem now at the plant? I don't know. It just completely explodes, many times bigger than Chernobyl, right in front of you. And they're picking up 1,000+ times the radioactive isotopes 100% associated with meltdown. And now it's admitted the rods got blown all over the place. It's admitted, and now they're saying that's a good thing, and that the engineers actually did that so that it wouldn't completely melt down. And a lot of other engineers have actually concurred with that, that blowing it up would send it in different directions so it wouldn't all melt down into one big blob and really go China syndrome. So, government always lies is the point. They lie up front and don't want to tell you what's happening.